Thank you. All right. So I'm going to try to talk fast since we're running a little bit late. Just a little, you should know about me. As Carl said, I am a mentor and a coach, and I work exclusively with agencies and creative professionals, and I'm also part of the How Design Live conference. So let me start with some big ideas. And Richard kind of teed this up for me in the last presentation because it's easy to get all caught up in what we're doing and what we're talking about and think it's the most important thing. But he ended on something that's obviously the most important thing. And so nothing else really matters. That's kind of how I'm thinking about things. But business development does matter. And so yesterday in one of the camp sessions, the question came up of what is the definition of business development, because everybody seems to have a slightly different definition. So I wanted to begin by defining business development, and I consider it to be marketing and lead generation. Basically, it's not sales, it's not closing, it's not necessarily even getting referrals from, well, it actually is getting referrals from existing clients, but not building out more business from existing clients. It's essentially keeping the pipeline full. So I'm going to give you my take on business development because, unfortunately, there is no right way to do this. There's no formula. But, you know, for everyone in the room, I would think that generating leads is not the problem. You do it for your clients. You know how to do it. The problem is generating the right leads. Because I've heard a lot of people talking about some of the marketing tactics and tools that they're using, but they're not generating the right lead. So my whole presentation is about attracting what I think of as the best clients or the right clients, the ones that you really want to work with. So that starts with your mindset. There are two pieces to this puzzle from my point of view. There's the mindset, and then there's the tactics and the tools. And if you don't get the mindset right, then you're not going to get the tools right, or you're going to get the tools right, but you're not going to do them properly. So the goal in my book is to get your ideal clients, the best clients, to land on your site or to respond to you in a conversation and basically say, you are exactly who we need. This is exactly who we need. Those are the people that you're looking for. And so to find the right ones, you need to, number one, know exactly who you're looking for. And that is sometimes a big problem because you don't want to alienate anyone. You want variety. You want to do lots of different things. But you must know exactly who you're looking for. Then you need to know where you're going to find them. And that means literally where do they go, online and off. You need to know what they need to hear in order to trust you, because trust is essential. There are so many competitors, as you know. There's so many different choices that they have. So why would they trust you? That's a relationship issue. Then you have to be patient and stay in touch with them until they're in their moment of need, which could take months, it could take years. You never know. But you have to be there and be ready and be available and be handy. Your contact information has to be handy. They have to remember that you exist. And then finally, you need to know how to close the deal, and that's the sales part. All right, so it's actually a simple process, and I try in all of my talks especially to distill things into the simplest because there are so many marketing tools out there. There are so many different ways you could do this. But you have to do what I like to think of as connected marketing, which is, another way of saying this is you're in the right place, in front of the right prospects, with the right message at the right time. Those are a lot of pieces to pull into place together, and it does take a lot of strategy. And don't forget that when it comes to marketing, timing is everything, because you can have the best list and the best services and be exactly who they need, but at the wrong time. And that's why patience is really important, and persistence. And it really is all about relationships. As I've been talking to people here and asking them about who their clients are and how those clients found them, there's always a relationship at the bottom of it, even if it's a cold call, even if it's a warm call, even if it's someone you knew from 2 businesses ago, all right? But it's always a relationship. So the most important thing is to be cultivating relationships, to be personable, to be asking questions, to be talking to people, to be staying in touch with people. There are lots of different ways to do that. But my understanding is that creative people and technical people are not always the best people, if you know what I mean. And so you really do have to learn how to become a better people person, despite all the technology, maybe in spite of all the technology. Because truthfully, many marketing agencies don't practice what they preach. And when they don't do it as the priority of their business, because your marketing is your future, right? That's the future of your business. If you don't do it now, you're only going to have what you have now. And so I think when I say take it seriously, I mean treat it like a client project. Give it time, give it hours, give it resources so that it's not on the back burner or the last thing you do because you know you have to do it. And part of that mindset also is, I heard Emily Lewis say, I hate it, but I know it works, and that's why we do it. So that's one mindset. And as long as you keep doing it, that's okay. But then there's another mindset that says, we know this is what works, and therefore we're going to do it. So you have to have the right mindset. Because, and this is my little rant, I do believe that word of mouth ain't all that. Meaning that word of mouth is a euphemism for taking whatever comes along, right? Taking whatever happens to fall in your lap. And sometimes that's good. Sometimes those are good clients. But the problem is you can't control it. And you need to be able to control the flow of work that comes in. And that's why business development is the thing you have to set up, the system that is going to work for you. And through that process, you have to qualify the ones you want to work with so that you weed out all but the best. And so here are just some questions that I use with my clients to help them weed out. And really you want to pick the best possible prospects you can. So will they answer your questions? Will they get on the phone with you if there's an RFP and answer your questions? How responsive are they? Does it take a day for them to get back to you, a week for them to get back to you? Because remember, these are busy people who are overwhelmed and under pressure, especially the ones with the big projects. So are they going to be able to be in touch with you, to communicate with you? Can they keep an appointment? Do they follow through? Are they in a hurry? Are they constantly leaving things to the last minute? Most people actually do that. So you have to figure out, if they are, how are you going to compensate for that? How are you going to find, is it on a Saturday afternoon that's when you can reach them, or 7:30 in the morning when that's when they answer their email, or that's when they check their email, right? Those are the things you have to figure out and use to weed out. Will they pay on time, of course? Will they pay up front? And what is their tolerance for doing their part in the process? Because it is a two-way street. Then you have to be able to say no to the worst clients. So in order to find the best, you have to know who the worst ones are. And saying no is often a problem for people. All different types of people. So one of the things people seem to come to me for often is language. What should I say when this happens? What should I say when that happens? So a part of my presentation includes what you can actually say to certain types of the worst clients, right? Because obviously we don't want to be working with abusive clients, but there are actually several of them out there. So you could say, no, I'm afraid we can't help you. This is our policy and this is our process. Leave it at that. If you have to say no to the cheap client, you can say, we simply can't afford to do what you're asking. We can't afford it. If you have to say no to the chaotic client, you can say, I'm so sorry, but what you're asking for is actually not possible, right? Because people in chaos think everything is possible. They are wishful thinking that everything is possible. Ever have a clueless client? Actually, many clients are clueless. And so for them, if you're going to say no to them, you have to say, I'm so sorry, we don't have the resources it would take to do the right job for you, right? On the other hand, you can train certain clients. You can educate clients, because often they do need to be educated. So you have to choose and qualify through your process which are the ones who can be trained. There are many old-fashioned clients, especially in the technology world, who don't understand things. And so for them, you can say something like, let me walk you through the process. It's really not all that complicated. And literally hold their hand through the process. You can train the wounded client to trust. This is someone who's been burnt. This is someone who's gone through many different agencies, many different technical situations, many different CMSs maybe. And how do you help them come on board with you and relax, basically? And you can say over and over, here's the status of your project. It may require over communication. It may require more communication than you're used to, than you have time for, than you've budgeted for. But it's very important for them to trust and feel comfortable in working with you. And finally, the drama queen. Anyone have drama queens as clients? You know those people? Everything, they need it ASAP. Everything is a huge ordeal. These are not bad people, obviously. They've got a lot of problems, and often they're personality problems. But if you want, you can train them, and really, they need to relax. And there are sometimes things you can do to help them relax, including saying something like, don't worry, we've got this under control. Right? And just make things really simple and easy for them, and don't react with drama to their drama. So if you're a drama queen and you have a client who's a drama queen, that can be a problem. So that's the mindset for finding and attracting the right clients. Now I want to talk about some of the tools. Now, I redid this presentation completely this morning. And so forgive me if it's not as seamless as it could be, because I really felt like the message that was in my original presentation was not the right message for this group. And so the tools and tactics especially, this is kind of a brand new presentation that I think is going to serve me well in the future, but I'm very curious. It's an experiment, let's say. And so I'm curious, what you're going to think of it and if it resonates with you, because this is what it seems to me you need to hear. And I'm practicing what I preach, right? Because you're my audience and I need to understand what you need to hear, and I need to put it out there and then see, is it going to work? Let's see. You'll tell me. So the first idea is that there is no right way to do this. Unfortunately, there is no formula. And as Richard said, all of your businesses are different. Not only do you offer different services, but you're working in different markets and you're working in different geographical locations. And so that makes it such that there is no right way. So with that said, there are still way too many marketing tools to choose from. You know that because you sell them. Right? So which ones should you use for yourselves? Obviously, you have to practice what you preach and use the ones that you sell in your own way for your own purposes. But again, I like to distill things to the simplest as possible because I think that's how it will actually get done. And I want to remind you of this idea that connected marketing means that you are in the right place, in front of the right prospects, with the right message, at the right time. So, 5 elements here. The first one is to focus and speak directly to the people you're trying to reach. So what that means is you can speak your jargon, which is where you talk about your expertise and your services and your technology, or you can speak the client's language. And that has to do with sometimes metrics, that has to do with analytics, it has to do with the goals and results that you're trying to achieve, and it could have to do with the pain that they feel and the problems that you solve. All right, so when you're speaking to your prospects, you need to know how best you're going to speak directly to them. And so this lends itself to your elevator pitch. How many people have an elevator pitch? You know, the answer to the question, what do you do? Oh boy. Unfortunately, we don't have time to do that exercise, but I'm going to give you the structure of the exercise. But how many people in the room say, I'm an agency owner or I run a digital agency? Come on, tell the truth. All right, good. Your elevator pitch, the paradox here is that it's not about you. It's about them, right? So I'm going to give you a couple examples, first using mine, and then I checked out some of the websites of the people in the room and reused those as examples. I was up at 7 this morning doing that. So it's not about you. My version is I help agencies and design firms find better clients with bigger budgets. Sometimes I say bigger clients with better budgets, right? So it's kind of a Mad Libs type of thing, and there's a structure here, but I'm focused on what you might be looking for, not what I do. It's not about you. And it reflects a perceived need, because when you're connecting with people, you need to connect with what's in their head already, not what you know they need, but what they think they need. And there's a difference there. So my version of that is I help agencies and creative firms promote their services. Boring, but clear. Sometimes clarity trumps creativity, let's say. Also, your elevator pitch gets you into a conversation. It is not everything you do, everything you could possibly do for a company, but it is the one thing that connects you to them and gets you into the conversation through which you can tell them as much as you need to without overwhelming them about what you do and what you can do for them. So my version is I work with agency owners when they realize word of mouth isn't enough. So if you are in that moment and you have just realized that word of mouth is not enough, or it's bringing the wrong people, you might go, oh, tell me more. And then we can talk. And really, you're looking for an opening. You're looking for people who are open and for an opening to get into a conversation with them. And that can happen in person, it can happen online, it can happen in many different ways. It can happen in email. So here's the structure for the elevator pitch exercise, which we're not going to do right now. But again, there's no right way to do this, bless you. There are many different approaches, and I've narrowed it down to 3 that I like best, and I've already used myself as the example here, so I'm going to use you now as the example, where you emphasize the pain. Talk about their pain. People are so familiar with their pain, and they respond when you talk about their pain. So the message is, we feel your pain. And the elevator pitch, I found the positioning statement on, okay, I can't see my notes, so I don't remember who this was, but maybe you can raise your hand. We help businesses overcome obscurity. Marcus, thank you. I love that. It's so simple, and yet it speaks directly to the pain of the prospect. All right? Second approach. Emphasize the need. So this is their perceived need, what they know they need. We pride ourselves on out-caring the competition by building meaningful connections with your audience through SEO, PPC, and analytics. Actually, this is from Seer Interactive. So what I loved about that is, yes, it has all the jargon of the services that they offer, SEO, PPC, analytics, etc., but it also speaks directly to a person. We out-care, they even made up a word, right? That stands out. We out-care the competition by building meaningful connections. So that's a really good example. The third approach is we know your goals. And this is from Sonia. Is Sonia in the room? There you are. Excellent. They're focused in the aviation industry. So there's, again, very simple, aviation marketing that gives you lift. And that doesn't necessarily speak the jargon. It speaks the metaphor. It gives the analogy of the industry, of the vertical. And that speaks directly, actually very subtly, to the market. All right? Is that clear? The 3 different approaches. Here's one I love. It's a combo of pain and goals. So if you can combine some of these, even better. So this one says, get attention, acquire customers, marketing can be confusing and expensive, we make it clear and effective. Whose is this? I think it was Jay Owens. Is that yours? Yeah. So that's the homepage blurb, the positioning statement on the blurb. I love it because it speaks to the pain. Marketing can be confusing and expensive. We solve that problem. All right? That is speaking the language, speaking directly to your prospects. This is from a copywriter who's a client of mine. I love it because his homepage basically says, you found me. What was it that brought you here? Did you search for B2B copywriter? Or was it freelance or Marcom writer? Maybe it was an industry specialty that steered you my way. Transportation and logistics, training, supply chain. No matter, you're here and I'm glad. It's just so human, so personal, and yet it's public, it's generic. And he's kind of planting the seed of, here's who I'm looking for, without coming right out and saying, here's who I'm looking for. It's just very artful. And of course, a copywriter has to practice what he preaches, right? Because every single piece of copy he writes, including his own website, is an example of his work. So that will automatically show that if this is what you're looking for, you're in the right place. And I highly recommend it, by the way. All right. Let's see how we're doing on time. Doing okay on time? Yes. All right. Take a little break. So, networking. How many people like networking? Okay, good. How many people hate networking? Okay. Most people hate it, especially when you use the word networking. But the truth is, it's all about making friends, talking to people, cultivating relationships. And so what I did here this morning was turn it into strategic networking. Because I think in order to work, you just don't go out there and start talking to people, right? You have to be very clear and strategic about who those people are and where you're going to find them, and then what you're going to say to them. So to find the best ones, you really do need to do it very strategically. And I would say for the whole room, probably the local Chamber of Commerce is not the right place. All right, you can just cross that off your list. Starting a conversation is usually the tricky part. It's what people seem to hate about networking. So I am going to offer just some starter ideas about what you can say. So for example, if you were here, I mean, obviously this is a very welcoming environment, but if you were at CES, for example, or some other trade show, you might say, is this your first? Fill in the blank. That's a good way to start a conversation, because for a lot of people it will be, and so they'll know that maybe for you it is. Or if it's not, then they might take you under their wing and say, oh, well, come along with me, right? So that is a nice way to get a conversation going. I also love this. It's very transparent. If you're working on your elevator pitch, and you should be, always, you can say, I've been working on my elevator pitch. Tell me what you think. And then you say it. That is a much better way of answering the question, what do you do, than just launching into it. Because sometimes the problem with the elevator pitch is that it sounds canned, right? You don't want it to sound canned. But if you say, listen to this, tell me what you think, then automatically it's less canned, even if it is canned. So it's just a nice kind of personable way to do it. If it's something educational, then I always like to ask about learning. What have you learned so far? What can you share with me that you've learned so far? And that connects in the other person's mind to whatever is top of mind. Not what did you like, but what have you learned? Did you see the movie last night? You know, whatever happened. Did you see the sunset last night? Did you see that cool animal? Whatever it is. But those are just a few conversation starters. You can also say, very easily and nicely, how is your day today? How is it going so far, right? What are you here looking for? What do you have trouble finding? Now, these kind of lend themselves to the research questions, and that's the thing that I find the most important actually about networking, is that you approach it from a research perspective. You are always in learning mode, trying to gather information about what people need. You're not trying to sell anything. I think that's why people hate networking, is because some people go out and do it as if they're selling, and then they think, oh, well, that's the way you do networking. So I'm going to have to do that too, but that's not the case. You can do it in research mode, and I think that is much more effective because it keeps everybody's defenses down. So research questions. Go with your questions. What are you trying to learn about this market, about your best prospects, so that you can speak to them directly? So these are just some of the questions. And you know, a very obvious one, but one that doesn't get asked. Do you work with outside agencies? Or is this something you do in-house? Or is this something you're thinking of taking in-house? And if so, why? And you can get into that conversation, since that seems to be what is happening, right? So whatever is happening, see what you can find out about it. All right, those are the first two. The third is targeted outreach, AKA cold calling, AKA warm prospecting, AKA I like lumpy mail. Right? Something that lands with a thud on their desk. And I have a picture here of one thing that landed with a thud on somebody's desk. It almost doesn't matter what it is. Obviously, it's good if it's related to your business or related to their business, but it could be something completely incongruent. It could be something cool. It could be something fun, just as long as it's an excuse, basically, to follow up with phone and email and say, did you get that thing? Right? It could be, with digital printing. How many people do digital printing, variable data printing, to do this kind of highly customized, super, ultra customized direct mail, basically, right? I think that can be so effective, and yet so few people are using it. So that's one suggestion. But targeted outreach, so you know exactly who you're reaching out to, and the reason people will respond, even if it's email, right, and they get tons and tons of email, if it is crafted such that it's obvious it's not a mass mailing, you've done your homework, you're reaching out to them for a very specific reason, you're customizing, you use LinkedIn to do all of your research to come up with something that they're going to recognize, right? Whatever it is, the more personalized, the more likely they are going to be to respond. That's the reality. That's what's happening. And that's what makes it work. And I think when people do it in a lazy way and without doing the research and just almost a mass mailing, then that's why it doesn't work. And you use the excuse of, cold email doesn't work or warm email doesn't work, but it actually does. It came up in a conversation yesterday, this idea of the slime factor. What about the slime factor, especially when reaching out to people one-on-one? But really, one-on-one is the only way to actually get their attention. And remember, they're getting bombarded with messages. We are all getting bombarded with messages. So imagine the environment that they're in and what it takes for you to get a little bit of mental real estate. That's where all the work is, just to get noticed in the first place. And again, remember that timing is everything. So they have to be in the right moment. But every time you drip on them, whether it's a call or a message or a lumpy mail, it registers in some way. So that is building trust. And if you stop, if you give up too soon, you will have wasted that entire investment. So be very careful when you decide to do these things to do it all the way through until it works, because it really does. Did I mention this takes a long time? This is a long game, that's for sure. Okay, 4. So this is a new idea also. Because content marketing, inbound is something that a lot of people are doing, right? Raise your hand if you're doing content marketing, okay? It's supposedly the new thing, right? But, haven't we all been doing content marketing for a really long time? We just didn't call it that. I know that the first 30 years ago when I started my business, I sent out a newsletter. That's content marketing. I didn't know it at the time, but that was what I did. But content marketing is also one of these tools that takes a tremendous amount of effort. It has to be in the right place. It has to be the right message to the right people at the right time. And that's why it takes so long. But I'm making a distinction here between regular content marketing and what I'm calling qualifying content marketing. All right? So let me tell you what I mean. It's the difference between, here's what we know you're struggling with. Your content speaks to the struggles in the same way that your elevator pitch speaks to the struggle. Versus, here's what we know all about. This is our expertise. I see a lot of content marketing touting the expertise of an agency or a creative firm. But it speaks much less to the problems that you're solving, that you know they have. And that, to me, is where the gold is. That's what they will identify with and will register and will want to know more about how you can help them solve that problem when they're ready. Okay? Is that clear? Okay. So here's an example from one of my clients, a design firm in the healthcare industry. And the top one, so it's not like one is good and one is bad, but I think qualifying content is much more effective. So the one on top, what to do, these are white papers that they produce. What to do when your external audience will see your internal healthcare message, right? This is a problem the principal of this firm knows that her clients in healthcare have. And she wrote a white paper about it, right? That is the problem that they solve, versus video, the strategic healthcare solution, about a service that they offer that their clients may or may not realize that they need. All right, so one is much stronger and more compelling than the other. That's the point I'm making. Here's an example from A Bright Umbrella, Emily and Leah, one of their blog posts, Don't Turn Away Donors, right? That speaks to the pain. It qualifies the prospects. They don't want to turn away donors. Here's the solution to that problem. It has to do with their expertise, but it's not about the expertise. An excellent medium for qualifying content is case studies, which can be presented in many, many different media. So you emphasize the client's problem, and they identify with that, and so they keep reading to see how exactly you solve that problem for someone just like them. And case studies should be meaty. They should be beefy. And someone might say, oh, they're never going to read it. They're never going to take in all that information. You'd be surprised when someone is ready to make a decision, they want all the content that they can use. So again, it has to do with the right message in the right place at the right time. That's what sets qualifying content apart from regular content. All right, so it could be written, it could be presented in video, and the best is to present with your client at their industry event, right? That's how you get in front of people just like them who have the same problem. Anybody doing that? A few people, excellent. I grabbed a screenshot from Sparkbox, one of their case studies that I like. So utility customer self-service case study. And what I like about the blurb there is they're talking to the problems of the clients that they have. So toughest constraints, budgetary situations. So they're speaking to and then going into detail about how they help this particular utility company, and other utility companies, of course, know that they will get help with the same type of situation. I also love, at the bottom there, you can read quick read or full article. Obviously, very user-friendly. So the whole point of content marketing is generosity. You are giving away everything you possibly can, everything you know, without fear that it's going to be taken away from you, without fear that they're not going to need you because you've already given them the answer. There is no answer to all of this. None of this is original. None of this is precious. You have to share it so that you are perceived as the one who knows how to help them. And I was reminded of this a little earlier by Emily, thank you. It's true that when we have a piece of content and then it's done, it's like, okay, now we got to create a whole other piece of content. And some of it doesn't go very far. Chris is nodding his head. You know, you recycle this stuff. You repurpose it. You put it from one medium into another. A blog post becomes a newsletter, becomes a podcast, becomes a webinar, becomes a presentation, becomes a case study. There's so many different ways to mix and match content. But when it's qualifying content, when it speaks to the problems of your prospects, then that gives it a much longer shelf life. All right. And then finally, a little bonus one here, because this is where the tools work together, where I think content marketing meets targeted outreach. So the images I was able to grab this morning are not ideal, but the idea is what I'm trying to convey. So, okay, let me tell you the idea before you have to look at that ugly slide. The idea is that your content, you use your content to reach out to your prospects and invite them to be part of your content. All right, so you're not selling them anything. You're saying, we've got this podcast. We've got this blog, we've got this webinar series. Whatever it is, whatever your content medium is, you're going to ask them questions about how they do it, about what they're doing well, about what's not working, all right? And then you're going to feature them. And why would they say no? Everybody loves to be featured as part of content. They would not say no to that. So I have two examples. This is from a design firm called RX Creative, and you can see they specialize in medical association marketing. And the middle, I'm not going to try to use this, but it says, I interviewed 9 people who run association marketing departments, ranging in size from blah, 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 right? So those 9 people that she interviewed are her prospects. She got on the phone with 9 people and was able to interview them. So that's direct outreach meets qualifying content marketing. All right, that is the best way to integrate some of these tools. I have one more example. Can't see it very well, unfortunately, but it is a podcast from a designer in the sports marketing world. And so he is interviewing his prospects for his podcast. All right, anybody doing something like that? Excellent, Jay. All right. Uh-oh. All right, and then finally, I don't actually have a lot to say about this except to emphasize you have to be consistent with your follow-up, right? Email, newsletter on an ongoing basis. Distribute all of these things through social media. You have to be out there on an ongoing basis, not saying, why isn't it working yet? This is not working. It should be working, all right? It takes a long time. I want to wrap up by going back to strategic marketing just for a moment. How many people say this? I'm really bad with names. Okay. How many people are good with names? A few, okay. And most of the people, so-so, I guess, right? Remembering names, as Will said last night, I think, I agree, is one of the most important things you can do. So if you're starting with, I'm really bad at remembering names, you're at a disadvantage. So I advise you to try to remember names, because all that matters really is that you try. And it's not that hard. And the first thing you have to do, of course, is listen. You listen for the name. And it's difficult because when we meet someone for the first time, there's a lot of information coming in, a lot of different ways. And so to hear the name is not most top of mind. So that's why you have to listen, and you might have to ask them to repeat it back. And I recommend that you do either ask them to repeat it or you repeat it back. Oh, you said your name was Chris. Good, thank you. Now I've got it. And I've said it out loud. That helps to instill it in me. And then, inevitably, you're going to say, oops, I'm sorry, I already forgot your name. It's not a big deal. It happens to all of us. And I think it makes us human. And to me, the most important thing in marketing is being real and being human at the right moment with the right people, because there's so much automation out there now, and you never know if what you're getting is real or not. So everything you can do to make your marketing real is key. That is what will make it stand out. So just, again, connected marketing is being in the right place, in front of the right prospects, with the right message, at the right time. And a little recap of the 5 tools that I went over, and this presentation is available. I'll give you the URL: focus, strategic networking, targeted outreach, qualifying content, and consistency. All right, so you can get my presentation at that URL right there. Do I have time for questions? Should I take questions? Probably not, right? Okay, no problem. Thank you, everyone.